All right, let's get right into it. When we look at South Africa in 2026, we're looking at a really fascinating economic puzzle. This whole explainer is based on the Emerging Horizons report, and what it shows is a country that's truly at a crossroads, a place just full of deep contrasts and, just massive potential.
And this one sentence from the report, it just nails the feeling perfectly. Cautious optimism. It's the story of a country that's taking these big steps forward, but at the same time, it's feeling this heavy drag pulling it back. And it's that tension, that push and pull that we're going to unpack today.
And here's where you really see that paradox in action. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got this resurgent economy. Investors are feeling confident again, the country's credit outlook is positive, and the private sector is just pouring money into new infrastructure. But on the other side, society is under a ton of strain. Youth unemployment is at a staggering 60%, and it is still the most unequal country on the planet. So, how can both of these things be true at the exact same time? Well, let's break it down.
Okay, so first up, we have to talk about the things that are really holding the economy back. Think of them like these massive, heavy anchors that have been weighing South Africa down for years.
32%. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the official unemployment rate. The report doesn't just call this a problem, it calls it a social emergency. And a number that high, well, it threatens the very stability of any economic recovery.
And then there's this number, 0.63. Now that might not sound like much, but it's the Gini coefficient. It's a measure of inequality. And what it means is that South Africa is, by this metric, the most unequal society in the world. That huge gap between the haves and the have-nots is a fundamental challenge to any kind of sustainable growth.
And on top of all that, you've got these four huge anchors. There's the energy crisis, the constant power cuts or load shedding, thanks to the struggles at the state-owned utility Eskom. You have major logistics bottlenecks, clogged ports and railways that cost the economy an estimated 50 billion rand every single year. There's a huge mismatch between the skills people are learning and the jobs that are actually out there. And finally, crime and corruption act like a massive tax on everything, costing over 300 billion rand a year. These are some seriously powerful headwinds.
But and this is a huge but, that is only half the story. Because at the exact same time those anchors are dragging on the economy, these powerful new engines of growth are firing up, and they're starting to change the entire picture.
So where's all this new optimism coming from? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is that the government has really gotten its financial house in order. They've managed to slash the budget deficit from over 8% of GDP just a few years ago to around 4.5%. That kind of responsible management has been an absolute game changer for investor confidence.
And this number, 15 gigawatts, this represents a seismic shift. This is the amount of new energy capacity being built, not by the government, but by the private sector. So while the state utility has been struggling, private companies have stepped up to fill the gap in a massive, massive way.
I mean, just look at this jump on the chart. We're going from less than 2 gigawatts in 2020 to over 15 in just 6 years. This isn't just a small patch-up job, it's a fundamental transformation of the country's whole energy landscape. And it's being driven entirely by private money pouring into renewables like solar and wind.
And then you've got the global picture. The whole world is shifting to green tech, right? Electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines. Well, all that stuff needs a huge amount of very specific minerals. And it just so happens that South Africa is sitting on over 70% of the entire world's reserves of platinum and manganese, two of the key ingredients. This puts the country in an incredibly powerful position for decades to come.
All right, so those are the big macro forces at play. But where things get really interesting is when you zoom in and see how technology and new ideas are transforming core industries right on the ground.
Take mining, for example. It's South Africa's oldest industry, but it's getting a complete tech makeover. We're shifting away from high-risk manual labor toward remote and autonomous operations, where people can control machinery safely from an office on the surface. Decisions aren't just based on gut feelings anymore. They're being optimized by AI and data analytics. It's making mining safer, cleaner, and a whole lot more efficient.
And hey, remember those logistics bottlenecks we talked about? Well, the private sector is basically using technology to build a bypass around them. The explosion in e-commerce has kicked off a logistics revolution. You've got AI optimizing delivery routes, cutting fuel use by up to 40%. You've got tiny sensors tracking every package in real time, and companies are even using drones and electric vehicles to solve that tricky last-mile delivery problem in big cities.
And if you want just one perfect example of this in action, look no further than Checkers 6060. In just 3 years, this service went from a brand new idea to capturing over 60% of the entire online grocery market. It's an incredible story of how smart tech and logistics can just leapfrog over old barriers to dominate a market, seemingly overnight.
So there you have it. You've got these powerful headwinds and these incredible new engines of growth. The future really depends on which of these forces wins out. It is a true balancing act.
So, what this all boils down to are 3 crucial questions for the future. First, can the private sector keep up this incredible momentum in fixing energy and logistics? Second, can the country manage to retrain its millions of workers for all these new digital jobs that are being created? And third, can the government provide the kind of stable, predictable policies that give investors the confidence they need to bet on the long term?
Answering those 3 questions, well, that's going to determine everything. The nation has these powerful new engines pushing it forward and these heavy old anchors holding it back. The direction it ultimately sails is the great South African economic question of 2026.